Now, some of you may have watched this. We, as I often say, we do, so you don't have to. But last Thursday night, President Biden went on the attack with a speech that had President Trump given, the media would have come unhinged.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Now, what are these MAGA Republicans doing?
MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country.
Now, on the front end and the back end, it sounds like Joe Biden was describing the Democratic Party. But at the heart there, we begin to see what he's talking about. It's the left's radical social policy of abortion on demand through all 9 months of pregnancy, paid for by you. It's the indoctrination of our children in our public schools, paid for with your tax dollars, with their radical sexual ideology. We're opposed to that. And so that makes us mega Republicans that are against the Constitution. I fail to see his logic. We are the ones defending the Constitution. But never mind that. This was an attack whistle that was not missed by Democratic activists.
We are at war with these people. These folks are evil. They have allowed evil into their house with Donald Trump. He has now dominated the party. This evil is spreading. And when you are in a war footing, you have to respond accordingly. It's about time President Joe Biden decided to get tough.
That was the Reverend Roland Martin, who is a commentator for the left. But the Republicans have also responded, including my next guest, who called the president's address a muddled rant that declared war on American citizens. Joining me now to discuss the president's speech and more is Congressman Jody Hice. He serves on the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, the House Committee on Natural Resources. He represents Georgia's 10th Congressional District. Congressman Hice, welcome back to the program.
Always great to be with you, Tony. Thanks.
Look, you've been in the political arena now for quite some time. You're accustomed to the rhetoric, but the whole setting of the president's speech last week, his comments, his attack on half of the country, frankly, is alarming.
It's extremely alarming. It's disturbing. It's if someone is incapable of watching this and not being chilled to the core of their being, there's something wrong with those individuals. This is America, and here is a president who promised to unify our country and is doing everything just the opposite. He is deliberately attacking at least 50% of the voters in this country, calling us threats to democracy, threats, which, by the way, we are a republic, not a democracy, but nonetheless, he is attacking us as being threats to the very foundation of our country, haters, violent people, disrespectful of our Constitution and the rule of law. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, look, here's an administration who is keeping wide open the borders against our Constitution. Here's an administration that is attacking religious liberties for those who believe in life and those who believe in traditional marriage, and they are under attack for those beliefs. Here's an administration, like I said, that's keeping the borders open. That just 2 weeks ago, this president himself unilaterally, without constitutional authority, forgave federal student loans. Even Nancy Pelosi said he has no authority constitutionally to do so. I mean, we could go on and on and on. The Democratic Party, unfortunately, has become masters at accusing others of the very thing that they themselves are guilty of. And I believe these most recent speeches from the president have highlighted that reality.
You know, part of the point that you made in your response to the president's address last Thursday night is not what he was saying, but what he was not saying. You know, as he's focused on half of America who does not support his radical agenda, we've got China that is beating the war drums. We've got an open border in which chaos reigns. We have skyrocketing inflation, and the list goes on.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you listen to what a person says, but you also listen to what a person does not say. And in this case, we have the administration with one crisis after another, from the economic crisis, the inflation crisis, the energy crisis, the border crisis, a crime crisis, China, as you mentioned, national security across the board, one crisis after another, not even mentioned. It's just unthinkable that all this president can do is attack conservatives and attack former President Trump and not address the real issues that this country is facing.
I want to play another clip, a short clip, and we're going to be coming up on a break here in just a moment. But what I saw in the president's speech was projecting what the Democrats have been doing for the last 3 years, what they believe in, but projecting it onto Republicans to try to marginalize and demonize them. Play clip number 6, please.
We can't allow violence to be normalized in this country. It's wrong. We each have to reject political violence with all the moral clarity and conviction this nation can muster now.
Where were they during the summer of 2020 when the streets of America were on fire and cities were smoldering because of the left that was rioting?
And where are they now? While crime is rising in every major city in this country, while they have been, and now trying to back out of it, but where they have been leading the charge to defund the police, to defund law enforcement, where have they been while the government has been weaponized, be it through the IRS or now through the FBI and the Department of Justice, to come against American citizens? I mean, I don't know that there is any greater fear that a citizen of any country would have that would be greater than their own government being weaponized to come against them. Yet we are now watching this unfold before our very eyes right here with the United States.
Congressman Hice, we're up against a break. Stick with us, because on the other side of the break, I want to talk about something the president repeatedly says. We're in a battle for the soul of our nation. And frankly, that's the one point I agree with him on. But we're going to talk about that next. On the other side of this segment, first segment, we're talking with Georgia Congressman Jody Hice about the divisiveness of the president's speech last week in Philadelphia. This is one of the statements, and the president's kind of made this his theme, and we're hearing this over and over, and I've talked about it before, but he brought it up again last week. Play clip number 8, please.
I ran for president because I believe we're in a battle for the soul of this nation. I still believe that to be true. I believe the soul is the breath, the life, and the essence of who we are.
Congressman Hice, I think that's probably something that we could agree with on this president, that we, with this president on, that we are in a battle for the soul of our nation.
We are in a battle for the soul of this country. We're in the fight of our life for this country. And I believe now is the time people need to understand that like never before. You know, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? What should the righteous do? That's the question. The difference that we have with the president is he views the attack for the soul of America as being those who are standing for righteousness, those who are standing for our Constitution, those who are standing for the rule of law. And somehow he is turning this whole argument upside down to where his position of fighting for the soul of America is to fight for those things that are in and of themselves destroying our country. It's absolutely a bizarre scenario that we're watching.
But it's, yes, it's, you know, it's saying the words, all the buzzwords that sound good. But in fact, as I said, they're projecting their agenda. They're the ones that can't stand the Constitution, that foment lawlessness. I mean, that is a hallmark of the Democratic Party. But I wanted, on this issue of the battle for the soul of the nation, if you look at their policies and you look at the indoctrination that's taking place in our schools, yes, theologically, we know this, America as a nation doesn't have a soul. But what they are doing is going after the souls of our children, the literal souls of our children with their policies. And this is what should alert and awaken every Christian in this nation, that there is a battle between good and evil. And look, I'm not talking personalities. All you have to do is look at the policies. Look at the policies being promoted by this administration, and they are damning to the souls of children if they follow the path that's being laid out.
No question, Tony. That could not be said any stronger than what you just said. And, Isaiah tells us to watch out for those who call evil good and good evil. And that is precisely what we're watching with the destruction of the minds and hearts and souls of children across this country. And while you were mentioning that, I was even thinking back during the pandemic how this administration really said that churches were non-essential and that they should close down. They should not even be allowed to meet and gather and pray and encourage one another and help the sick and so on and so forth. This is an administration that is doing everything that a Judeo-Christian worldview says should not be done. And this administration is supporting and advancing every agenda and ideology and philosophy that goes against a Christian worldview. And we must understand that it is that Christian worldview that constitutes the very foundation of this country, apart from which this so-called American experiment cannot exist. And so this is in that perspective, a fight for the soul, the foundation of our country, the likes of which we've never seen before.
And every Bible-believing Christian should take note of those words: pray, vote, and stand. Stand for biblical truth. But Christians need to be registered, and they need to be voting. And I know you're in Georgia. You're going to be with us at the Pray, Vote, Stand Summit. And I know people are discouraged because of what happened in the last election, but we just have to have an election blitz and overwhelm any shenanigans that may take place at the voting booth.
That's exactly right. This is the time that the body of Christ needs to have our finest hour, which is being salt and light, which is being engaged through prayer, through action, through voting. This is the time that it's got to happen. And I am so glad that this conference is coming to Georgia, and we're going to do all we can to help encourage people to come be a part of this. Look, I tell Christians a lot, Tony, that, at the end of the day, all the issues we're facing in this country really come down to spiritual issues. They're spiritual problems. And so from that perspective, we are part of the problem as believers, but because we've been absent for so long, but we are the solution. We're the ones, and it's conferences like this that bring people together with an understanding that we must pray, we must stand, we must vote, and now is the hour, the time for us to do so.
We only got about a minute left, Jody, but you led almost 100 members of Congress in signing a letter to Nancy Pelosi, calling her to hold the president accountable for his $500 billion student loan bailout. Very quickly, tell us about that and where it might lead.
Yeah, last July, Nancy Pelosi herself came out stating clearly, without any wavering whatsoever, that the president does not have the authority to forgive federal student loans. And so we came out in this letter, and about 100 of my colleagues, reminding her of her own position on this issue. And we invited her to join us in upholding the Constitution, the rule of law, the separation of powers between the legislative branch and the executive branch, and to hold the president accountable from doing this unconstitutional act for which he has no legislative or constitutional authority to do. As of yet, not very surprisingly, we have not yet heard from Nancy Pelosi, but hopefully, she'll come around. This is her position. Well, she's just now not saying anything about it.
And I hope that voters will communicate this and their concern about this to the president at the polls as well, because this is the type of policies that you get with an administration like this. Jody Hice, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.